Hello, Miss Steele here. So this week we're talking about contrast. So we're going to use contrasting colors in our project today, and we're going to make our own contrasting color flowers. So contrasting colors are colors that are across from each other on the color wheel, and they really help each other stand out. They look good together. They're also called complementary colors because they complement each other. So I'm going to grab our I need to tell you what we need for this project. You want a piece of paper, a pencil, and an eraser, and then you want something to color in with. I'm going to be using markers. You're going to want your 3 primary colors, red, yellow, blue, your 3 secondary colors, orange, green, and purple, and then a black marker as well. So you could use markers, you could use crayons, you could use whatever you have. I'm going to start by explaining a little bit more about complementary colors. First, I'm going to put down our primary colors. Blue, red, and yellow. We mix together these colors to make every other color that we know. Next, I'm going to put in our secondary colors. I'm going to put orange in between yellow and red because yellow and red mix to make orange. I'm going to put purple in between red and blue because red and blue make purple. And then our last one is green, which goes in between yellow and blue because yellow and blue is what makes green. So complementary colors are colors that are across from each other on the color wheel, like yellow and purple, red and green, and then orange and blue. Black and white are also complementary colors that we're going to be using. So what we want to do first is we want to draw our flower. And to draw our flower, what I'm going to do towards the top of my paper is I'm going to make a bumpy circle. I'm going to add a little swirl on the inside just so it can have a little bit more detail. And then I'm going to draw the stem, and I think I'm going to give my flower 2 petals. Or not 2 petals, 2 leaves. Those are the petals up there. Now that I have my flower drawn, I'm going to use my black marker, and I'm going to go over all my pencil lines. This is going to make these lines stand out while we're coloring. And it's also going to make it easier to color in because we're going to be using some different colors. So once you have it drawn on pencil and you're happy with it, you want to go over your pencil lines with the black marker. This will make it easier to color in and also really make these lines stand out. Once I'm done outlining, I like to go back just to make it look a little more finished, a little more clean, with an eraser, and I try to erase any pencil lines that might be sticking out. So now that I've done that, I'm going to move on to my next step, and that is going to be using my pencil to draw 2 lines on my paper. I want to draw one line going down the middle this way, and another one going down the middle this way. I might move it down just a little bit. Seems a little high. Sometimes art teachers make mistakes. Like that. So now that I have these 2 pencil lines, I'm going to use these to guide me. I'm going to start out with black and white as our first 2 complementary colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to color inside the flower black, and then I'm going to leave this part where it's inside these pencil lines white, because we're going to be coloring this in using complementary colors. So if you color in the flower with a color, you want to use the complementary color on the outside. So I'm going to start with black and white because that's our easiest one to get out of the way. Now I'm going to move on to using our primary colors. Took me a second with my brain. So you want to pull out your primary colors now that we have black and white out of the way. And I'm going to color in this part of my flower, trying to stay inside those Sharpie lines and where I drew those pencil lines, because we broke up our paper whenever we drew in those pencil lines blue. I'm also going to color in these petals down here blue. Now I'm going to move on to this part. And if you can see, I'm going to try to stay inside my pencil lines and inside my Sharpie lines. And I'm going to color this part yellow. So I'm going to color in the last part of my flower, which is over here, red. And once I'm done coloring in with my primary colors, I'm going to grab my secondary colors so I can color in the outside of the flower using those colors. So we're talking about contrast, so we're practicing using contrasting colors. Like I said earlier, contrasting colors are colors that are opposite on the color wheel. Because they're opposite each other on the color wheel, they really help each other stand out. They're also called complementary colors because they complement each other because they look so good together. So now that I have my yellow colored in, I'm going to move on to my last one, which is my red. So I started out with the inside of my flower using my primary colors and also black. And whenever I'm coloring in, I'm trying to stay inside those pencil lines whenever I drew those two straight lines going through my paper, and also inside my flower, which is why we outline with the black markers, so it's easier to stay inside the lines. I'm using markers, like I said earlier, but you could use crowns, you could use colored pencils, you could even use paint if you wanted to for this. So now that I have this, I'm going to grab my paper from earlier, and I have blue right here. And I know that orange is across from blue on the color wheel. So I would color in this part of my paper inside the pencil lines and those Sharpie lines that we drew, or black lines. I used a Sharpie, but you may have used a different black marker. And I'm going to color around in this area using orange because that is the complementary color to blue. It's across from itself on the color wheel. To make orange, you use red and yellow. So you don't use any blue whenever you're making orange. So because there's no blue in the color, it looks really good next to it. It helps contrast it because they're so different. So I'm going to get this all colored in with my orange, and then we'll move on to our next step, which is up here in the yellow. Alright, so I have my orange all colored in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the complementary color to yellow, which if we look right here, we know that yellow and purple are across from each other on the color wheel. So I'm going to make this section of my paper purple. To make purple, you mix together red and blue. So there's no yellow and purple, which is why they look so good next to each other, because they're really different, just like with orange and blue. They contrast each other, and they also complement each other because they look so good next to each other. So I'm going to get this colored in purple, and then we'll move on to our last section, which is over here. Alright, so I finished these two, and if I look right here, I know green is across from red on the color wheel. So for this area, I'm going to use green because green is the complementary or contrasting, like it's also called, color to red. To make green, you mix together yellow and blue, so there's no red and green. And because of that, they complement each other and contrast each other. And then our last section, the section we actually started with, was black and white. So I'm going to leave that white on the outside because white is the opposite of black, so it contrasts and complements that color. And just like that, my complementary contrasting color flower is finished. I can't wait to see how yours looks, and I will see you all next time. Have a wonderful rest of your morning, your evening, or afternoon, whenever you're watching this. Bye!